Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Boozer, and I'm so excited to welcome you to today's CUGC User Share. Our User Share webinars are awesome presentations that our community members step up and volunteer to present their technical knowledge to the community at large. So we're always excited to have members from the community stepping up to do this. And today we're going to be talking about a script that's automating Citrix Cloud and Windows virtual desktops. But before we get started, just want to go over a couple of housekeeping details for you. Our presentation is being recorded and you will receive a link to today's recording. You'll get that link in an email tomorrow. It will come directly from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. It'll also have a link to a forum thread at mycugc.org. So if you do want to ask more questions after the presentation's over, if you think of something you want to know more about, that'll be the place to ask that question, and I'll make sure that we get those answered for you. Also, during the presentation today, please submit your questions at any time. Our presenters are going to take questions at the end, but do want you to put those questions in as you have them, just so you don't forget them, and we'll keep an eye on those. And finally, at the end of the presentation today, I do have a short survey I'm going to get you to fill out. It's quick, it's anonymous, it's for CUGC use only. We just like to get your feedback about our webinars. It helps us with planning for future content. And so with that, I'd like to introduce who is on our call today. We have Chris Jeucken. Chris is an EUC consultant for Conocenza in the Netherlands, and he's also a Citrix technology advocate, a CTA. He has been working in IT for 19 years, over 19 years, and he has slowly moved into the desktop delivery area. He spends most of his days designing, deploying, and managing desktop infrastructures, and has a heavy focus on automation where it's beneficial, he has in parentheses, I like to point out. Also with us is Chris Twiest. He's also a Citrix technology advocate, and he has a passion for scripting and automating EUC environments. Chris is literally about to start a new job as technical officer at Rawworks in the Netherlands this Friday, November 1st. And at Rawworks, he'll focus on the intelligent workspace. So I'm going to hand things over to Chris and Chris to get us started, but really quickly, I did just put in the chat window for you a link to a blog post that they co-authored that's all about what they're presenting today. So take a look at that, and here you go. Chris, off to you.
Yeah, thank you for the great introduction. Here, Chris Twiest. With me is, of course, Chris Jeucken.
Yeah, here's Chris Jeucken. We'll begin as usual with the agenda for this webinar. And well, introductions were done by Stephanie. Thanks for that. Then we will go into why automate in the first place. Why would you do that? What advantages does it give you? Then the rules. We like to set up some rules before you start a project like this, and set some goals or set some rules that we must follow during creation of the script. Then we walk through the automation steps. Which steps do we need to do before we get to the desired result? Then we go into the issues we ran into during automation. I think that's the most interesting part. And of course the demos. Well, you see the resulting script that we created in action. Don't worry, it's sped up quite a lot. So, yeah. And then we show all the stuff that you can use for your own scripts. Yeah, there's already a blog post about it on myCUGC, but we'll get into that later. And then we also show another part that only focuses on the W3D part and not on Citrix Cloud.
Yes.
So back to you, Chris.
Yeah. So the first what we want to talk about is why automate? Well, actually, the question could better be why would you automate? Because it helps you prevent doing the same stuff over and over again. So it makes stuff redeployable, and that is really handy when you're talking about the Citrix infrastructure. If anything goes wrong, just redeploy it. do stuff quicker and more consistently. Of course, when you script stuff, the script runs the same every time. So there must be a high consistency. And a script can do stuff a lot quicker. And even if it doesn't do stuff quicker, you don't have to do things manually. So if the script takes the same time, you can do something else in that time. So that is time you get back. With the script that we created, we wanted to give a kind of a DAS solution, but but still that you can manage every part of the DAS solution yourself. So the script creates a complete desktop as a service, like a service, but every part you can see. You can see the cloud connector, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and saving all the time and stuff means you have more time free for the fun stuff, like innovation, like looking at intelligent workspace, which is a great subject, and of course create time for community stuff like we're doing today. So those are some of the things why you want to automate some stuff. So back to you, Chris.
Okay.
The
Well,
rules?
like I said, we want to set up some rules for ourselves. Well, we call them the rules of engagement this time. We want the script to be run from any Windows device, and that doesn't necessarily is part of the domain that you're using. Only thing it needs is an internet connection, and I think PowerShell version 5 or newer. I haven't really tested all the versions actually, but that are the only requirements for your device. Well, we use PowerShell simply because it's, in my opinion, it's the most easier. It's just very easy to read also when you look at other scripts. The credentials, well, we actually ask for the credentials for most of them. You'll see in a couple of moments. The only things that we have in the script are the cloud key for Citrix Cloud, so the secret and the key and the ID of your environment. Well, the script must run with a minimum user input. What we mean by that is that all the input is at the same time. So it isn't running for like 10 minutes and then asks something in another 10 minutes and asks something. It asks everything at the beginning and then runs by itself from there. And we clean up after ourselves. Usually we have to create some storage blobs, as you call them in Azure. And we don't need them after, so we clean them up again. And of course, this is proof of concept. We were just looking if it could be done, if we can create a script like this, and it's not necessarily meant for a production environment.
Yeah, so I want to emphasize on 2 points. Well, the first one, of course, that we really wanted to use any device that you have with an internet connection to make this whole environment. So it doesn't need to be in the same domain. It doesn't need to have a VPN to Azure or something else. It just needs an internet connection. So later when we go on to some issues, we'll talk about that some more. And yeah, the credentials are as much as we could. We asked them in the script on you and then save them in a credential so you don't have to enter plain text credentials, because of course that is really bad. So the automation steps.
Yeah, that's back to me. Well, the steps for this script is, well, first sign the Citrix Cloud. I think that's really necessary. Create a resource location. Well, sign into Azure. Create the VM, so the actual VM with Windows on it. We need to download and install the Cloud Connector software on the Cloud Connector VM and connect them to Citrix Cloud. Then create a Windows 10 multi-user VM and download and install the VDA software in it and make sure it connects to the Cloud Connector you just installed. Then, of course, a machine catalog and delivery group and assign users to the delivery group. So at the end, you have a functional desktop.
Yeah, that's the key. So the issues we ran into doing this, because we also always think that we set these crazy goals for ourselves, like, okay, can we automate all this with a PowerShell script? And then mostly the most interesting things are probably the issues that you face. So we always like to share the issues, and some issues we didn't even solve yet, but it's just nice to share them and see how we thought about it, and maybe someone else has some better ideas. And it's great that Stephanie is gonna create a forum post for this webinar so we can maybe discuss some of these issues. So the first issue we had was an authentication issue. So we wanted to just ask for your Citrix Cloud credentials and then do everything from there. Well, we couldn't do that because you need an API key to talk to the Citrix Cloud API. So we wanted to see if we could automate creating the API key, so creating the whole sign-in process throughout script, and we couldn't figure it out. I believe that if we have some more time to look at it and take it to the next level with some Postman stuff and some cookie injecting and stuff, that you can maybe fix this. But for now, our script requires that you manually create this API access key and copy that information from the key to our PowerShell script. So that's the only manual step that you have to do before starting the script.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time looking into this, and what we're basically doing is checking all the HTTP commands that go back and forth, so the post and the gets, and we're trying to reproduce that in PowerShell. And with some portals we could make it work, but with this and the time we had, we couldn't get it to work and create the secure client by script.
Yeah, because we also, of course, had a time limit for ourselves, set for ourselves. So, okay, how much can we script in 2 months' time on the weekends? So also keeping in mind the time limit, we chose to do this part with an API key. So the next issue I already talked a little bit about. We wanted to create those VMs, and then in Azure, so we create our Cloud Connector VM in Azure, and then we want to run scripts on those VMs because we need to install the Cloud Connector. And so we really thought about it. So how can we run a script on an Azure VM? Well, you can of course do a remote PowerShell, but hey, you're not in the same domain, and that machine doesn't have a public IP because you don't want that in Azure. So there's no way of contacting that machine. You're also not in the same domain because we wanted to run this script from any internet device, any Windows internet device. So what we also thought about was using Azure Automation, but then you have to install a hybrid worker and you have to configure Azure Automation. And we also wanted to make this copyable, so everyone could just use this script and doesn't have to have a whole Azure Automation account and that kind of stuff. So what we ended up doing was using PowerShell extensions. So we create a storage account, upload a script to a new blob, and then run the extension on the VM from the script that's in the blob. And this is, it works, but it's not really the best way from a managing point of view, because you don't get any information really back. You just get, okay, the extension has run and is finished, but if the installation is succeeded, you don't know that yet. So you have to really know that the script is working and that kind of stuff. So but it's working, so this is the way we figured that out. But I think you can make it, maybe make it some better. Yeah, sorry, Chris.
And
yeah,
it's also not the most elegant solution.
No,
but you'll see that in a moment.
Yeah.
We also had an option to give the machine a public IP, but that wouldn't be a good idea from a security standpoint.
No, exactly. So the solution we created is not elegant, but works. So I see we said we're gonna answer some questions at the end, but I see that Anthony has entered. If you pre-create the API key, you can use it over and over as completely non-interactive access for full automation. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So that is one of the cons of pros. Sorry, pros of using authentication as we do.
Yeah, but if I can answer that, it was kind of we wanted to lower the requirements for the script, and now we have a requirement for an API key to be there, and to lower the requirements. If you would automate it, it wouldn't be a requirement anymore. So that was kind of the idea to looking into it to automate.
Yeah, so the pro is indeed you put the key in once and you can run the script as many times as you want. The con is, well, it does require one first step to set it up. Yeah. So the next issue we have, and we didn't manage to fix this yet, is creating the hosting connection to Azure for Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So power management is not working at the moment. So our script creates a Windows 10 for, multi-user virtual machine in Azure, and then we add that machine just as a non-power managed machine. So we also have no machine creation service and no power management. And that is because, as you can see in the left image, the sign-in screen, this sign-in screen could not, we couldn't figure it out how to get through that from Citrix, from the studio and the PowerShell SDK we have there, to create this connection without the sign-in screen. So I also looked at what Citrix does. Well, if you do this manually, it will create an enterprise application in your Azure Active Directory, and then it will set API rights to that enterprise application. So I tried scripting that, creating an enterprise application, no problems with the script. Setting API rights, okay, that's a little bit trickier with the script, but then you end up that you have to grant permissions. So that button you see in the right screenshot, and there is no API or PowerShell call for the grant permissions yet. So someone had figured it out with the post and get commands, but those didn't work anymore when we tried it. So yeah, we just had to skip over this, and our machine is just not a machine creation service and no power management for now. So maybe someone has a better idea how to create that connection, and maybe we can work together to figure something out. So our last issue we want to talk about is, well, we first wanted to try to use as much as the APIs of Citrix Cloud as possible, instead of using the remote PowerShell SDK and then connect to your cloud connector. But these APIs that are on the website are still in beta mostly, and our experience with it was that it didn't work as advertised on the web page. So we filled in some values and we got questions back, completely different values asked back from, okay, you're missing this value, okay, but that value is not in the website documented yet. So that was an issue. And also, as you can see, if you're gonna create deploy a customer catalog, then you also have to fill in an Azure subscription ID. If you look in the value in the bottom, and this ID must also be there must already be a connection between Citrix Cloud and Azure for this to work. So you can fill in a subscription ID, but it will not make that connection. That connection also needs to be manual when you using these APIs. So you first have to manually one time create that Azure connection, and then you can use this API to use that Azure connection. So this was also not the answer to our last issue.
Yeah. So don't get us wrong. The APIs are pretty extensively documented, but most of them aren't completely done yet. So there is a lot of information you can get from it, but it isn't perfect yet.
No, indeed. So we really want to do more with these APIs, because I think APIs can make stuff a lot easier. But for this script that we created, we do use APIs to create a resource location and to sign in to Citrix Cloud, but that's it. So yeah. So now the demos, giving it back to the other Chris.
Yeah, well, the demos. But first, we like to mention the requirements that we mentioned before. Like we tried to keep them down as much as we could, but these are just basically requirements. Like we mentioned before, the secure client, you need to create it. You get a CSV file with 3 values in them, and you can put them in the script, and it will use that to connect to the Citrix Cloud. Then, of course, you need to have a domain or domain controller in your environment, and of course, we could have automated that, but it would take a lot of time. It wouldn't be very hard, but it just would take time that we didn't have. And one important thing, it needs to be running. And we walked into it, we ran into it a couple of times, so, hey, it didn't work. Oh, our domain controller isn't running. So but those are the requirements actually for the script to work.
Yeah.
Show them before running. You can see on the left side, we tried to log in with account test01, and it doesn't accept it. Well, it says incorrect username and password, but in Dutch.
Yeah.
Then on the right side, you see the current machine catalogs and delivery groups. The ones that we will create start with tag script, and as you can see, they're not there yet. So just we want to show this before that these things aren't there yet. Then the variables. For everyone taking screenshots now of the top 3 ones, don't bother, because that secure client doesn't exist anymore. Those are the one we use during creation.
That's a shame. I thought free Citrix Cloud. No.
No, sorry about that. Then I've divided them up in user variables and non-user variables. User variables are specific for your environment. And then I divide them up again into stuff that needs to be there, or stuff that will be created if needed. And then the non-user variables, you could keep them like this, but I'm guessing you don't want your machine catalog and delivery group to be called script machine catalog WVD. So it might be a good idea to change those also.
Yeah. So next up, we got the demo. It starts up with being sped up, I think, about 20 times, and then later on it will be sped up about 1,000 times. But watching paint dry is still more interesting. But I'm gonna play it so that you can see that it will ask for all the right credentials in the start. So I'm gonna start the movie, and as you can see, it's also loading in and installing all the correct PowerShell modules. It now is gonna ask you to sign into Azure. This sign-in screen sometimes appears behind Visual Studio Code, so be careful about that you don't think, oh,
if we used ICE, it didn't, but if we used Visual Studio Code, it usually appeared behind the screen. So
yeah,
so strange.
As you can see, in the meantime, it asks for my Citrix, my.citrix credentials, because it needs those to download the VDA. It asks to create a username and password for the local admins. It asks your domain admin credentials, and then it's up to the races. It starts, and as you can see at the moment, it's creating the cloud connector virtual machine. It will make the Windows Virtual Desktop machine. It will create the storage account. It will download all the software. It will configure everything. It will configure the resource location. So yeah, if I just gonna skip a bit through it, we got a lot of text and a lot of output that you can monitor if it's running and if everything is going correctly. And then in the end, the script will be finished. I think that in this version we didn't have that yet, but in the new version we even created a stopwatch, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it will give how much time it took to do everything. But what's more interesting is watching what did it create. So in the first screenshot Chris showed you guys from before the script, we only had this machine, the domain 01. As you can see, it now also created a script Cloud Connector 01 and a script VDA 01. So those are both created in Azure. There is now a script resource location in Citrix Cloud, and as you can see, it has one Cloud Connector. Here is also the Cloud Connector. You can see it's green, that it's also connected to the Citrix Cloud. So we have a connection between the Cloud Connector and Citrix Cloud. You can see there is now also a machine catalog named script, and there is a delivery group named script. And when a user signs in, it now can sign in because it can authenticate, and the user gets a desktop Windows 10 multi-user icon. So let's see how a user now experiences our environment. So first, when we try this, the user got, okay, we cannot authenticate you because you don't have a Cloud Connector in your Active Directory. Now it's just signing in. I can go to my desktops and start my Windows 10 desktop. So this is the finished product of the script, is you got a desktop. So again, the desktop is not machine creation service and not power managed stuff, but the concept on the whole is working. And our main goal for the script also was just seeing, can this be done throughout a script without minimal user input needed. And yeah, we're definitely not saying use this script now at all your customers to create the desktops. No, but know that it is possible, and maybe you can use some stuff from our script to make your deployments easier. So we have a slide coming up with all the stuff that is in the script, and you can use that. So as you can see, this move is now done. The user is signed in, so that's working. Yeah, and then we come to what I just said. Chris?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the stuff you can steal for your own scripts and possibly or most definitely improve on that. We're not saying that the script is perfect, but we'd be happy to hear about improvements or suggestions about how we can make it a bit better than what it is now. Well, what is in it? First, of course, installing and importing. I guess it's the other way around. Installing and importing the Azure modules, then sign into Azure with a pop-up screen. What it also does, this is an older slide, but the version you see of the script on my CUGC, that's definitely linked a moment back. You'll see that it also it asks for your Citrix credentials, my Citrix credentials, to download the VDA, and it will also verify those credentials. Then create an Azure storage account and get the storage keys needed to use that account, the storage container in that account, and then of course the VMs, so the Cloud Connector and the VDA, the Windows 10 VM. Then run the scripts with PowerShell extensions that Chris just mentioned a couple moments ago. Then we get the bearer token from Citrix Cloud. We actually stole that from Eltje van Gulik. It's also a CTA. Then create the resource location in Citrix Cloud. That actually was quite easy and just 2 or 3 lines of text. Create machine catalog with a resource zone, create the delivery group and assign the users, and clean up the storage account.
Yeah, and in there we also got the domain join for an Azure machine, the download and install Cloud Connector software, download and install Citrix Remote SDK, download and install Citrix VDA. We stole that from Ryan Butler, so thank you very much for that.
So the download part.
Yeah, the download part. Yeah, correct. And the install part we made. Okay. create and remove Azure script extensions. So that are those extensions to run scripts on. Upload and download files from an Azure blob. We do that a couple of times in the scripts, and much more is in there. So all kinds of good stuff. So if you need anything like this, check out the script, and you can probably find it and use it for your own script.
Yeah, we also added a result screen at the end. It'll basically tell you if you're a member of this group and you go to this site, you can find this desktop right here.
Yeah. In the meantime, we got a question from Skip Miller. Oh yeah. Will the code download be available after the webinar, and where? Yeah, the code is already available, and it is on the CUGC website at the moment. So Stephanie in the chat shared a blog post, and there you find the script. So yeah, and we at the end of the webinar we also share the link again, but it is already on CUGC. And in a couple of weeks' times, we will also on our own blog copy the scripts. So for the rest of the questions, I'm going to wait till the end for the section. But this was a great question at the right slide, so I thought I do them in. But we're going to wait till the end. We will answer all the questions. All right. So now we want to talk about one last thing, and that is only Windows Virtual Desktop. So what if you want to create a Windows Virtual Desktop from script? Well, I created a script for TechTarget on searchvirtualdesktop.com. It's called Manage Windows Virtual Desktop with a PowerShell script. And in this blog, so in this URL, there is a script that will create a complete Windows Virtual Desktop environment for you. So it's kind of the same of what we did with Citrix Cloud, but then a lot easier because it's just fill in one Azure form and go. But it's also less powerful, of course, than the whole Citrix Cloud behind there. So if you want to only do Windows Virtual Desktop from script, you can find it here. So now we're gonna go over to all the questions. So please enter your questions. And so also here is the link to the blog which has the script. Stephanie also shared it, and our own websites are mine is workspaceguru.com, Chris Jeucken is chrisjeucken.com, and we will also share the post there in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, and also our Twitter handle. So if you have any suggestions, we're really glad to hear about them and what we can do better in our script. Yeah. And if we don't go into questions, there are still a couple of questions by Anthony. But I'm guessing you're posting some code, but it doesn't show me the code that you posted. You say if you use instructions on how to create a secure client file, you can use the following in your PowerShell to completely remove the need to authenticate your Citrix account. But keep in mind that there are two Citrix accounts that were used. We used my Citrix to download the VDA, and then of course the secure client to talk to Citrix Cloud. So yeah. I'm actually quite, yeah, okay, here it is. Yeah, we know about that, but it's still a requirement you need to do before.
Yeah, that setxd credentials. Yeah, that needs the secure cloud. Yeah, that needs the CSV. That needs to be there. And we use this. We use this setxd credentials when we're gonna create the machine catalog and the delivery group. We use those commands to authenticate to our cloud connector. So I think those exact commands are in there, except not for the CSV.
And it still needs a secure client to be there.
Yeah.
So it isn't actually the creation of a secure client. It's a part after that. And we created the create secure client part that you do on the Citrix Cloud website. We want to automate that.
Yeah. So that's correct. What Chris says is the set XD credentials is not new XD credentials. It won't create that API key. It will just set them. So we were at the same thing also, thinking about that. So are there any more questions at the moment? Let's
If
give
not,
it.
I know that we had some questions for everyone else. Like I know you wanted to run a couple polls to get people thinking about things that they could do on their own.
Yeah. Let's do a poll. So it's always nice to check out from, hey, do you use automating and scripting at the moment in any kind of form? So I'm expecting this to be really much yes, because Chris, Jeucken, and I are always really pushing everyone, and we really advocate the scripting and the automating in all our presentations. So okay, so we got an almost 80% yes, so that's great.
But I'm curious to hear about the 20%. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, maybe you can share something in the chat or in the questions box from why wouldn't you automate things?
This question actually, I'm curious, but we had an idea because you see those APIs, but most people don't really know how to translate them to say PowerShell, for example. And we might create a session about that, how you would approach that. So take an API, take the description that they have presented on their development sites, and show you how you can turn that into a PowerShell script.
Yeah, that's a great subject, because also those APIs are sometimes not really great documented. So there are some tools for that. So I think this is clear, Chris, for our next project.
Yeah.
To make a presentation about how to use the APIs, how we find those, how we put them in PowerShell. So I see there are also some questions coming in. We're gonna finish the poll. I think we got some more. Yeah, some coming up. So this is actually quite like the same question. Would you be interested in a session explaining how to translate an API to PowerShell? So I think that will be our next subject for Chris and me.
Yeah.
Can we after this poll, can we pause the poll, Stephanie, so that we can do some questions?
Of course.
Okay, so this is clear, I think. So I see we have a... Yeah, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I would like to answer the Emory. Well, first, Vitali, do you have some script for changing images in WVD? What do you mean actually with changing images?
Yeah, I know.
Creating images.
No, I think I know what he means. WVD at the moment is not really, doesn't really have an image management system yet. So I think he means that. I myself don't have those scripts yet, but I have been thinking about it. As long as they don't have a clear image management stuff, you can do everything with API. So delete your whole pool and then recreate it from a new image, like doing machine creation service kind of stuff. But I haven't spent any time on it yet. It's just in my mind. So maybe someone else has it. Please feel free to share. So
okay. And for Emory, you need to learn how to use scripts and create scripts. I had the same challenge many years back, and the easiest thing is to actually, when you have a goal, so say I want to create a machine catalog in Citrix, just Google it, try the code, modify it, and build from there. Most of us don't create all the scripts from scratch. It's usually you have a certain goal, and you look around the internet and you use some commands and you build from there. And one thing that also helps a lot, well, in my opinion, actually, is use Visual Studio Code, but because it will show you where you make mistakes and will give suggestions on how to improve it. It just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and we got a question from Laura, and I agree with you fully, Chris, especially on the use Visual Studio Code part, because it makes life a lot easier. We got a question from Lauren, and he says that the challenge he has with scripting is maintaining the code, so the commands change over time. Yeah, that is just something we have to deal with, but I know that most companies, as soon as they officially release their API code or their SDK or something, they support it for a really long time, because a lot of partner companies are also building stuff on that. So yeah, I know that it can happen, but my experience is that what more often breaks is that they just changed like one installation parameter or something like that, and yeah, that takes some time, but it's better that you figure that out and also know that for the next time, and that your script is working again, than just sticking to doing things manually, at least I think.
Yeah, and one thing you can also consider is creating check marks, or try to give a lot of feedback in your scripts as to what it's doing and when and why, and if it fails exactly. So when you have a really long script, it might help to put in some checkpoints, and so troubleshooting will become a bit easier for you.
Yeah, and I once heard a great tip also from great Jim Moyle when it came to PowerShell. He just said, put a lot of comments in it, so that if you do something, you think like, it's working now, but I didn't really know what I did, that if someone else is looking at your script, he knows what you were trying to do there. If you enter a correct comment above it, or even if you find your own script a year later and you have grown in your knowledge, that you think, I was trying to do that and now I can fix that easily. So that also really helps. So we also got a question from, how do you pronounce Vitali? Do you think that Microsoft creates something the same like machine creation service? Well, I cannot answer that. I'm not that close with Microsoft that I know what they're doing. I know that for Windows Virtual Desktop, they have said that image management is coming. And I also know that it is coming after the general availability that we already had of Windows Virtual Desktop. So I know that they are busy with something like that. I don't know how it's going to look or anything. So I think you might want to check out one of our community members who is also like a Microsoft MVP, and check if you can get some information from him.
But I'm guessing they will create some kind of image management for WVD.
Yeah, I think so.
But would it be like MCS? I'm guessing not.
So
and keep in mind that you can create your images also on premises, and then copy that image to Azure and use that for WVD.
Yeah, that's correct. Even for Windows 10, you can create a Windows 10 single user image on premise. And when you upload it to Azure, you can enter it as a Windows 10 multi-user, and it will change the product code, because there is no difference in software. It's just a different licensing. So that's also one of the things that is supported. There aren't any more questions at the moment. We have a few polls.
App layering with WVD at some point. You mean Citrix app layering or app layering in general? Because app layering in general, we're working on the app attach, I've really tried it myself, but I guess I will go that route. And you can use Citrix app layering if you use Citrix Cloud, and I don't know if it's included in Citrix Managed Desktops yet.
I don't think it's in Citrix Managed Desktop at this point because the image management in there is really sparse. But you can do it in full Citrix Cloud, and I think it's just supported. But no experience on my end with that also, because I usually automate the complete image, so you don't really need layers then. Let's do the last few poll questions, which gives everyone some time to enter another question if they have. So yeah, this is just what I talked about, automating the creation of your master image.
We're actually, well, I talked to some people at Synergy, and a lot of people in the US don't actually do that. And well, Chris and myself are actually, this is actually a must when you create your images, because you always create the same thing. And if you do it manually, you might forget some things or do things differently. That might have unexpected results when you deploy that image to the production.
Yeah, so this is really a eye opener that still people don't do that yet. So yeah, I think really try and look in that. Really try to. There are a lot of great tools to do it, and it will make your images just more consistent, cleaner, and faster. So
or take it in small steps. Don't try to create everything, automate everything at once. You can also just focus first on the VDA, and then focus maybe on Microsoft Office, and then focus maybe on well, whatever applications you need. You don't need to do everything at once. It would be great, of course, but start small if you see it as a challenge.
Yeah, we also got a question binner from Jay de Frank about I would like to know how to automate my master image. Well, I wrote a complete guide on automating master images. I did that with Authentication Automation is the tool, but there are a lot of tips and tricks and scripts in there. And you can find a guide on my website that is now on there. So Workspace Guru. It has a complete guide on how to automate the master image. And I know that the website of Chris has some great stuff on how to automate the VDA installation and stuff.
Yeah, delivery controller and storefront, etc.
Yeah. So check those out.
Yeah, there was a question actually I thought up, and of course Citrix has the documentation websites that talk about how you can silently install your delivery controller, etc. But it doesn't really show how you should create a database or set up a storefront server group. Those things are all not really documented or laid out. And should Citrix show you how to automate on a larger scale, so an entire Citrix environment, so not just each component, but to create an entire environment from scratch.
Yeah, because I know that we both have those scripts that we can script complete Citrix environments from scratch on premise, and now also we got a lot of scripting stuff for the cloud, but it took us a really long time to figure everything out and really looking on other people's blogs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
and
Citrix,
we do a lot of things that are not on the Citrix documentation website. So we need to look around to how to do stuff like that.
So no one has voted no. So I think that is pretty clear. So I think that were all our poll questions that we thought of. So that gives you some time to ask some questions. I think as much as I can see, I don't see any new questions at the moment. So I think that is our webinar. So I just have one slide. So follow also the MyCUGC on Twitter and follow the website. Oh, and I got another slide. Give us feedback. Yeah.
And I did put a link in the chat to that survey. And like I said, it's short, it's anonymous. We just like to get your thoughts and your feedback on all of our webinars. It definitely helps us plan our future content.
Yeah.
And of course, feedback to the stuff we created. If we can improve anything, you have suggestions about it, we'd love to hear it. And also, if you have questions or you don't know really how it works, just contact us on Twitter or through MyCUGC or whatever. We'd love to help you out with stuff like this.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for presenting. I know that you guys have done this presentation in the Netherlands, right? So for those of us in the US who haven't been able to get to that meeting, it's great that you guys did this as a webinar because you were able to share it with the community at large. So I really do thank you for doing that with us today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us, and thank you guys who are listening for also giving us inspiration throughout the polls for what we get show in our next webinars.
I heard that, next webinars.
Yeah. And thank you, Stephanie, for organizing, of course.
Oh, no problem. All right, well, as I mentioned, you will get a recording link tomorrow. I will create the forum thread for this webinar, so if you do have more questions, you'll get a link to that in tomorrow's email as well, and you'll be able to ask those so you can keep the conversation going. And I think with that, I'll let everybody get back to their day. So thank you again. Thank you for attending, and thank you, Chris and Chris, for presenting.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.